You have to completely surrender self. I surrender to, say, Baba. You can surrender to Jesus, whoever you feel, Archangel Michael, whoever you feel an affinity with. You have to lay your whole life and mean it into their hands, saying, thy will be done. And then you have to wait for the movement. It's like nothing happens without the movement. It's like if you got up and walked over to the pool, the movement would be there first. Well, it would be simultaneous actually, but your brain would get it first and then the movement would happen. If you decide to go back to normal, the movement happens. If you decide to eat something, the movement happens. You can't do anything at all without the movement. And the movement is coming from the divine. There is only the one. So it may seem like you're doing something, but in actual fact, you're not. We would like to explain that everything is just oneness. If you like, you're all the divine, everything is the divine sparks of God, the creative principle. Call it I am, call it God, call it unified consciousness, call it what you want to. And let's just say that God got bored one day and split himself into thousands of pieces so that he could actually bring them all back to himself and watch the play of consciousness as it unfolds. Because this is all this life on planet Earth is. It's a play of consciousness. You come to life, you come to Earth to evolve. Your soul has a contract. You speak with your spiritual advisors in the realms of light to discuss what lessons you need to learn in this incarnation and who you need to integrate with. And there are people like family members, children, spouses, maybe jobs, everything that you need to learn in this lifetime, karmic debts that you need to repay from past lifetimes. Everything is talked about beforehand. And the moment you're born, that is not a chance happening. You choose the moment you're born. There's no such thing as a premature birth. There's no such thing as an overdue baby. The baby will always come the moment that it allocated that the time was right. And then there is a footprint in the heavens, the constellations, the footprint in the heavens of that soul's destiny. And then the constellations, the planet, will actually guide that soul. So there isn't any really free will. The only free will is God's will, because there isn't any movement without the unified consciousness moving it. So you might just as well surrender to that in the beginning. If you think about it, you can't be anywhere else or doing anything other than you are doing. So what is the point in not just surrendering to that and accepting that? You can't do anything right and you can't do anything wrong, because basically you're an instrument of consciousness. Consciousness is the doer. Consciousness is evolving within you as it is within every other aspect of consciousness on the planet. Everything is at different levels of consciousness. This is what makes the play, shall we say, so interesting. I refer to the play, I give you an analogy. If you go to a film, you sit back and you watch it. There's a white screen and then the projector rolls and then you're enthralled in the movie. You know it. It might be somebody's getting shot, it might be somebody's getting raped, it might be a love scene where they're falling desperately in love. It might be lots of children that are coming from an orphanage. It could be anything. It could be a war. It could be Armageddon. Just think of anything that you could watch on the movies. And then after the movie's over, you come back to you. You were so enthralled in it, you forgot who you were. And then you come back to you who you think you are. But the you think you are is also part of the play, because within the aspect of the you who you think you are, within the aspect of the you who you think you are the divine aspect of creation, which is moving you. So if you surrender to this movement, then your destiny will unfold exactly as it's meant to, so much more easier. Get it right in a minute. Just kind of get yourself out of the way. You don't own anything. You've never owned any money. You've never had any children. You've never had a relationship. You've never owned a house. You've never owned a boat. You've never gone to work. You've never been born and you've never died. Basically, you're an aspect of consciousness that has never been born and it's never died. And it's just going through here, let's call it a play. It's all kind of experienced on a higher level. I'm just going to try and kind of explain this in words that are understandable and maybe easy to understand, with something that is actually quite difficult to grasp. So I think many people are asking at this moment of time, why is the world in such a mess? Why is the world going crazy? Why is the stock market going down? Why is there a war in Russia and Ukraine? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Why is this craziness accelerating? It's because we're at an epoch, actually, the end of an age, a time in planetary consciousness when there's a big division now between the light and the dark. This is happening because our planet Earth, is evolving into a different trajectory, actually towards the, give me that again. Oh, I'm not meant to have it, okay. It's going on a different trajectory. If you can imagine that there's a big wheel, and our planet shifts forward, and everything preceding that has already moved, and everything behind it is also moving. So everything moves in a great big circle. And we're all a part of that because everything is consciousness. Everything is molecules and cells that are vibrating at different frequencies and seem to give us a picture, which actually is not the reality. So all these molecules now are shifting into a different picture, and we're going into a higher vibrational frequency. Some people call it the golden age. We're at the end of a Kali Yuga age. Some people call it of ascension. There's lots and lots of names for it. But the real meaning of it is it's evolution. So you are evolving with every aspect of consciousness that is also evolving. But of course there are different aspects of consciousness on the planet. You have to have the light and you have to have the dark. You've got to have the war in Ukraine. You've got to have everything basically that would encompass a good movie. In actual fact, there's no difference between Hitler and Jesus Christ. They just wore different costumes, but they came to play a role. There's no difference between, say, let's just think, say you, for instance, and Princess Diana. Princess Diana came to Earth with a purpose. She came to Earth to open the heart chakras of humanity. She prophesied her death. She knew that she would die in a car accident. She knew that she would die young. She knew she would die early. And it happened. She died, I think, on a Sunday, if I remember. I was doing a workshop, and at 11 o'clock she came in, and immediately I got Prince Philip. I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories because that's all part of the illusion as well. So I just want to explain that everyone here is playing a part. You're playing your part. Obviously play it to perfection with the movement that you have. There isn't any right, there isn't any wrong, there's nothing to feel guilty about, there's nothing to feel proud about, because really you're just an instrument of consciousness that's here on Earth in its own evolutionary cycle that is already predestined. On a level out of time and space, all of this grand play was written, and now it filters down into the dimensions of time and space that are much slower. And now you think you're the doer. You think you're the one sitting on a chair. You think you're the one meeting a friend. You think you're the one that's doing so well at your job. You think you're the one that did so well to buy a house and to bring up such wonderful children. In actual fact, you did nothing. You couldn't do anything because there's only the divine spark within you that can unite you with who you are, and that is way beyond your form. So it's a time of remembering now. It's a time of remembering who you are, raising your vibration in complete surrender to oneness, and remembering to do that you can't have any stories, you can't have an identity, you can't be that person who had an alcoholic son, or had another son with brain tumour, or had a daughter that didn't speak to her, or had a husband that was violent, or went through any kind of persecution, had a mother that didn't love her, had a father that didn't understand her. All these are just labels, but they make you who you are in your world, in your reality. But they're really telling nothing about you at all. They're just I can't even get the word out. They're just something that's hiding who you really are. So you have to now to begin to unwind the film, start to take back the layers of the onion, to expose the divine spark of creation, which is your true reality and why you're here. You've come to this earth with a purpose, and that is to evolve as much as you can. The highest gods in the heavens, they would give themselves to have the opportunity that you have, because you can evolve much quicker in this vibration, this dense vibration, where you don't have the understanding of who you are and the total reality of everything. Through going through the university of life, you can evolve so much quicker than you could for millions of years in the levels of light. And the only way to evolve is by surrender. You can't do it any other way. It's an evolutionary process. The more you give up, the more evolved you become, the higher your frequency, the more you enjoy life, the happier you are, the more light you express. And you have to remember that you're not just doing this for yourself. You're doing it for your soul family, because we all come from a soul group. You're doing it for your families. There's a genetic bloodline. And we're doing it for each other. We're all like ripples on a pond, and as one kind of evolves, then it then streams out to others. So, and this is of course good or bad. So we're in the time now of real separation, and that's why these things are happening on the earth. And it's very difficult for people now to make that leap if they haven't prepared to go from the dark to the light. And our families especially are having great difficulties. Like, I'm evolving quickly and I'm bringing my sons along, and they're having great difficulties with that because it's like all of their karma is activated very, very quickly. So everything is happening one after another, after another, after another. So it's not an easy process, but we have to do it because this is such an evolutionary leap for our species, for humanity, for the collective. So I would say to you, don't worry what's going on in the world. Just stay in your own kingdom of heaven. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven lies within. Just go inwards, always follow the movement, whatever that movement says, no matter how bizarre it is. Like 3 years ago, I was guided to go to Portugal. I thought for 6 weeks to do planetary healing. Then I came in the COVID, so I came in November 2019, would it be? Something like that. Then in the January, I was very guided to put in for residence papers, because I found out that if you were there post-Brexit, you could do that. So I did that, not knowing why. That enabled me to stay 8 months that year, 8 months last year. And now I'm back again this year. And through that, I met you. You put that ad in the Spiritual Algarve saying that you were doing readings for nothing because you were practicing. I knew I had to meet you, not for a reading, but it was very nice, thank you, very good. But I knew that I had to connect with you. And so now this has happened. So I didn't know that 3 years ago when I followed the movement to come to Portugal. That movement may not be anything about getting a residence because I don't have it yet. I may not go through with that. I don't know until the moment comes. But if I hadn't followed all of those movements from 3 years ago, we wouldn't be here now doing this. So always follow the movement. Don't try and analyze it with the mind. The mind will always block everything. The mind has a question, then it needs an answer, then there's another question for the answer, and then there's another answer for the question, and you'll keep going round and round in circles. Just forget all of that. Don't let your mind interfere. Just allow your intuition to bloom. The slightest movement that you know is coming from your inner guidance, then that will kind of become clearer and clearer as you allow that movement to grow in you. I can only call it grow in you. So even if you feel not to go home a certain way, just don't go home that way. You don't know what might have happened if you'd gone home that way, and you might never know what happened because you went home another way. It doesn't matter, you follow the movement.
Beautiful. Wow. And maybe you also want to talk a little bit of Sai Baba and your teachers and masters?
And I think there's something else we've missed though.
You can talk maybe about forgiveness?
Yeah, see what happens with forgiveness. Really, there's nothing to forgive. We're all just aspects of consciousness. Nobody did anything to you. You don't deserve anything. You don't not deserve anything. All of that is the illusion. If you just hold on to things, then that makes you unhappy, makes the other person unhappy. Just live in oneness. It's very important that we do that, and that wherever we go, we see that everyone is an aspect of the Christ, because we're all aspects of consciousness evolving here on planet Earth at this time, the University of Life. So we basically mirror our oneness in each other. And your greatest teachers, those that caused you the greatest unhappiness, they're basically the greatest light, because Lucifer himself is supposed to be the brightest of angels, because he said that he would enter the kingdom of heaven last. And when I look at my own scenario, and I went through, like, I think it was nearly 10 years of violence, I had the good part because I was in tune with my with my with my guides, I think, at that time, and they kind of upheld me through that. But of course my ex-husband was just demented and in a place of darkness. So we can't ever judge a situation. It's never what it looks like. Don't ever judge someone that they're bad or they're good. There's no difference, but just be thankful that you're not a murderer on death row. Because basically that was just what that soul contracted to do for that lifetime, and it was about the soul contracts it had to the person it murdered and the family and everything around that, and even, you know, even the country. Oh, what an awful person to do these things, blah blah blah. But it's all to do with not getting engrossed in the movie. I mean, you can go to the other end of the spectrum. We've already mentioned Princess Diana, Mother Teresa. You know, you can think of them as the saints, but just think of everything as an aspect of consciousness and don't judge it. You can't judge it from down here. It's just absolutely impossible. You'll just kind of get yourself really upset. You'll get yourself really in judgment. Just forget everyone that you think has ever done anything to you, because nobody ever has. It's all just been a learning experience where you can actually come to this point in your life to say, enough's enough. I don't want it anymore. I just want to die to myself. I just want to surrender everything to the divine spark that's within me. And I ask all the higher beings of light to assist me in that I may be a conduit, that I may be an instrument, that I may go out and touch others with this light, and they may be drawn to that light and have an understanding of that light. Because that is the true reason for your being here on planet Earth. As I said, it's nothing to do with relationships, children. You've got to go through all that, excuse the expression, shit. You've got to go through all that. It's a purification process. It's like you've got to graduate from the University of Life to find out you've done nothing. That's the cosmic joke. So there's nothing to forgive because nothing really happened.
That's beautiful. Wow. And
you want me to talk a little bit about Sai Baba?
yeah, you can tell about your teachers and.
Well, we'll see what comes through. Sai Baba called me in 1998. The first time I went to him, he called me in 1998. I've had several interviews with him. He's manifested this pendant of Durga. In all of the interviews, when he looked into my soul and said, what do you want? The first one I said, your love and your blessings. He let me have Pad Namaskar, bless my head. Every subsequent interview from there, and he said, what do you want? I said, I only want God. And then the second one, I just was crying and I said, I don't want the world anymore, Swami. I only want God. Will you help me? And he said, yes, yes, I will help you. It doesn't happen instantly. I don't even know if it's going to happen this lifetime, but you have to really be willing to die in the fires of liberation. He's put me through lots of kind of difficult things, it would seem, if I was like coming from a worldly aspect. I can share a little bit, why not? I have a son who's had many suicide attempts on drug overdoses with alcohol and cocaine and stuff like that. I have a son who's got a brain tumour in Marfan's. I have a daughter who hasn't spoken to me in goodness knows how many years. I have grandchildren by her I haven't seen. I have grandchildren by my son I've never seen. But all of this is a purpose. If I hadn't gone through all of that, first of all, I wouldn't evolve to the level I am now, and secondly, I wouldn't be free to travel in my work. If I was a normal mother and grandmother, I would be at home like babysitting or picking up the kids from school or whatever. So don't ever judge what's happening in your life. That's really important, because you'll see maybe years later why that happened, or maybe not, but it doesn't matter. They're all just things that you have to go through. It's rather like you can't get gold until it goes through the furnace. So you're being put through the furnace, through the fires of liberation. And that's what happened to me once I came to Sai Baba. I spent 13 years, 6 months at a time, had many interviews with him, talked to me many times, not because I'm anyone special, but because he saw in me that I could be an instrument for him, that I was really seeking the divine. He says the only difference between me and you is that I'm God realized and you don't realize you're God. And that is so, so true. We have forgotten our own divinity, and that is why the world is in such a mess. If everyone just had this understanding and this remembering, and everyone just lived in the kingdom of heaven within, and everyone saw the Christ in everyone, and everyone just lived in peace and harmony, we'd be in the golden age. And that's where we're heading. And that's why this crisis has come about now. All the wars, all the persecution, all that's happening to the monetary system. These are people having to let go of everything they thought was meaningful to them, because, it's not. And they're going to find out that soon, because none of that is important. You were never born, you can never die, you never owned anything, you came in with nothing, you'll go out with nothing. So Sai Baba was a big influence in my life, he still is, and when he passed I asked for another living master, and then I went to John de Ruyter, and again that was beyond me, because when I first heard him I thought, I don't understand you, I don't want anything to do with you. But against myself I was guided to him. And I asked him how this could happen, and he said, if you're given to something deeper, it will get you to where you need to be, even beyond the self. And that proved to be true with him. And we had a brief 5-minute one-to-one. This was right at the beginning of my meeting with him. And he said to me, I said to him, do I need another living master? Because Sai Baba is very close to me, and I've been with him so many years. And he said, yes. So I said, well, how do I know which one? Because I've been with other masters. I'd just come off actually a retreat with a master in Arunachala when I went to John. And he said, go where the light burns brightest. And it didn't come through my mind, it came from my soul, and it just came out of my mouth, well, that's with you. And he said, well, then you have to come, and it won't be safe and it won't be comfortable. And it wasn't, but I've also learned through that year with him and the times before I was the year in his community when I was with seminars around the world. Through him and Sai Baba, I've learned very well now most of the time to learn the tightrope of living in this world while being in another. I think Jesus said to be in the world but not of it. The only way you can really walk in this world is to know that it is the illusion, and to know that whatever happens to you it is by the divine, because everything happens by the divine. There's only the one doing anything. We think there are others, but there are no others. All of creation is within us. There isn't anything outside of us. There is only the one unifying golden power that unifies everything. And it's calling everything back, every aspect of divinity, every aspect of consciousness, it's calling it back. It's an evolutionary cycle. It may take thousands of years, but in the blinking of God's eye, that's nothing. In the blinking of God's eye, this world creation was made and over. In the blinking of God's eye, we've just brought it into time and space, and we're kind of having to go through the motions, but just to kind of see that this is not the reality. You don't need to live in pain and everything like that. You don't need to have sorrow because a loved one died. There is no such thing as death. I took my own father's funeral. I was told by my grandmother in spirit right at the beginning, when I was 37 actually, my own spiritual awakening, that my father would die within 6 months and I would take his funeral. And I thought, my God, I've gone crazy. But it happened and he did die, and I felt him beside me in his light body, upholding me throughout the whole service, because I thought, how am I going to feel when I have to press the button for the coffin to go down? But he was just there in his light body, just upholding me. And then my mother, she was an atheist. She didn't believe a word of anything, God or spirit or anything like that. But she died, and she was through just about every medium I was anywhere near for years. So you can't die for the life of you, basically. There's two things here. There's what you really are, which is your divine spark, your divine essence, the creative principle, whatever you want to call it, God. Don't like that word because many people aren't religious and has a terminology with that. Or there's the self that you've made with all of its stories about what you own, who you are, how you feel, what you do, the whole thing that makes up who you are. So you just get rid of that, you just know that you're not that, and you just allow the divinity to express itself through you. Sounds simple, but you've got to burn in the fires of liberation first. So just look on every test and say thank you. Every kind of thing that you see as a bad thing is actually a gift, because you don't evolve when everything's going right in your life. You only evolve through pressure, all of the hard times. That's when your evolution takes place. So when you have these dramatic things, like I saw my son had tried to commit suicide right outside our house, and he was unconscious. That gave me a lot of pressure, obviously. But through that, I evolved. So I can say thank you for that experience, and many others. Everyone has something in their life that could just, make an antidote of that.
Oh, yeah, good answer.
I mean, sitting on the beach and reading a book, if that's what you do in that moment, that's fine. That also is a movement of consciousness. But also, if whatever you're doing, don't term it good or bad, just see it as a movement, as we were talking about the film on the screen. Don't buy in that you're that person. Just take the clothes off and find out who you really are.
Yes. It's like you said earlier about losing the story and the identity and just let it unfold.
Yeah. In every moment, remember going back to your true essence, not the self. That means giving up control, giving up manipulation, giving up everything. And that's what's happening in the world today. Everything is being purified to go with the new frequencies that are coming in. So there will appear to be great losses, especially on the monetary scene, and wars and fears of nuclear wars. Oh my God, that's total annihilation for mankind. Well, bring it on, We'll start again from a more pristine part, on a higher level. We won't go back through all that stuff again. At the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one, it's exciting.